making it obvious they had never been on stage before and were like laughing and kind of like just acting kind of silly, and to me it just took away from their overall presentation. What's up everyone, Kara Corey here, and yesterday I had the pleasure of helping out and judging the OCB 2017 New York State Natural Competition right here in Syracuse. And this was actually my first experience being a real judge. I was part of a show last spring when I was a test judge, so that enabled me to kind of get a feel for the judging process, how to go about scoring people, and what they did was take my results and they compared them to the group of real judges at that time to see if I basically passed the test to be a real judge. So I did good with that and I was able to judge, and I had a blast. Like, there is nothing more, I don't know, I love judging maybe just as much as competing. I had an absolute blast judging, and so I thought I would share with you guys some of what I learned from the judging yesterday at my show. This isn't specifically calling anyone out by any means, it's just giving you guys some information on some of the things that I saw from a judge's perspective, some of the things that I learned being a judge. And for me, it gives me great insight as a competitor going into competitions. So hopefully this helps you guys out. One of the biggest things that I learned from being a judge is it is extremely difficult to judge. And I don't care what category, every single category I judged yesterday. I judged men's and women's. So I looked at women's physique, men's classic bodybuilding, men's bodybuilding, did women's figure and women's bikini. Did I say men's physique? All those categories, and none of them were easy. Like, I feel like sometimes people in the audience, when they see family members compete, maybe they didn't place as well, you hear people like, oh, they're robbed and they look like shit and why didn't they do as good? You really don't know what it's like until you are in that judge's perspective. That judge's point of view tells such a different story than just looking at your family member. And of course they look great, and of course you want them to place well, but it really is challenging to place people. Thinking about any of the categories that came out yesterday, one of the biggest things I notice anytime I go to a show, I've been in the bodybuilding world since 2012, so 5 full years, and I have seen it completely evolve. And there was a time when you could go to shows and I think you could just count on people looking like shit. Like, you could just kind of count on people who are definitely going to look worse than you. Maybe you screwed up on your diet a little bit, but you knew there was going to be someone that looked worse than you there. And that just, to me, is not the case anymore. Everyone who shows up usually looks fantastic. Sometimes you get a couple people that show up who their goal is not to win. Their goal was, their 100 or 80 pound weight loss journey, and they just wanted to step on that stage. You never know someone's journey, but I do know that everyone who was there yesterday looked great. It made it incredibly complicated to judge, and I think you just see that across the board, regardless of what division you're competing in, what organization you're competing in. It's just so popular right now, so people know what it takes to get there and work really hard for it. So if you're a competitor watching this video, just know that, maybe use that to light that fire under your butt a little bit more, that, don't just get there to, step on that stage, be competitive about it and know that you're going to have some good competition. Because what I've seen as well is I've known some people where their goal is not to maybe win their pro card or place first, and, they just want to compete. And then they get on the stage, and after their stage experience, they're like, man, I wish I was a little more competitive. I wish I would have focused a little bit more on, trying to place higher. So it's just something to think about. Everyone is gonna look great. With judging a category of, 10 to 15 people that look great, it can be really hard to stand out and kind of separate people. And I think at yesterday's show, we did a good job with judging because they would split up the categories a bit. So, we'd have some people stand in the back, have some people stand in the front, kind of flip them around. That way we could get a really good look at everyone. Also, competitors were moved all across the stage. It gave you no indication really of how you were going to place. It was more so to switch people, and sometimes people would laugh because there'd be 2 people in one category and we'd flip them around. But essentially, when you're on those stage under the lights, you do look different in every spot that you stand on the stage. So whether you're in the center or the right or the left, you look different under the lights. And with the judges panel too, you've got a big judges panel in front of you. If someone's standing off to the far right and I'm off to the far left of the judging panel, I kind of may not get a good idea of how that person looks. Now, you may not always get as awesome as a judging panel as what we had yesterday, where we did a really good job and kept moving people around. That way all the judges got a really good look at people. I was able to tell the head judge if I wanted someone moved in, if I wanted to compare someone, to someone else, I was allowed to say, hey, move this person in between so-and-so, and, we were able to do that as judges on the panel. So I felt like we gave as fair of a judge as we could of each and every competitor. However, you may not always get that. I've stepped on stage and that's it. You stay in your spot and you're done. So with that, you need to come out on that stage and you have to be ready to go, and your game has to be on the second you step on that stage. You have to be ready to shine. You have to be ready to stand out. I learned that during my pro show. It took me a minute or 2 minutes, maybe longer than that, because it felt like I was on stage a long time. But I had a little rust out there on that stage, and even though I had practiced, my nerves were high, being my first pro show. And that was the feedback that I had gotten at that time, that you didn't give off enough confidence and sass, which I did, but it took me a couple minutes. So those couple minutes could have made the difference of how I placed in that show if I would have just came out ready to nail it and at least fake it till I make it. I tell people you got to fake it. Even if you're not confident, you have to walk out there and give that sass right away. So remember, as a competitor, maybe the stage isn't your favorite part. Maybe it makes you super nervous. Maybe you get shaky. Don't worry about any of that. If you shake, it doesn't matter. Half the time as judges, we don't see it. But at least think about going out there and presenting a confident package. Even if you're looking at your other competition, not sure how you're going to place, forget all that. Go out there and focus on showing as much confidence as possible, regardless if it's an amateur show or a pro show. That could be what sets you apart on stage, is just having that confidence in the way you look, in the way you pose, the way you make eye contact with the judges. All those things do make a difference. With everyone looking phenomenal, it sometimes comes down to the most little things that you have to pick apart on how to place people, especially in bikini, especially in physique. Like, everyone looks so great. Everyone kind of has a little bit of a different body. So how do I choose, one guy who's lean and shredded versus the other guy that's lean and shredded, but maybe is a little bit bigger. Maybe the other guy has bigger lats. I mean, there's so many little tiny things as a judge that you have to pay attention to kind of pick apart in order to place people where you place them. And at the same time, you have to be prepared as a judge to give feedback, because you as a competitor aren't just going to want to hear that you need to get leaner. You're going to want to know where, why. You want to know specifically, like, was it my abs? Is it my legs? Do I need to have a bigger butt? Do I need to just have more glute hamstring? All those nitpicky things that you're looking for as you're judging. So it's a lot to do when you're judging. But going back to standing out on stage, you have to find a way to do it, you guys. Even if you're not confident, even if it's your first show. I talked to a lot of people yesterday who placed very well, first placings, and it was their first show ever. I would have had no idea. These people walked on stage like super confident and poised, like they had done it several times. And that's the presentation you want to give off. You don't want to go out there like, I also saw some people who were like, just making it obvious they had never been on stage before and were like laughing and kind of like just acting kind of silly, and to me it just took away from their overall presentation. I saw people who were talking when they were standing in the back. Just because you're told to wait in the back of the stage, you're still being judged, you're still being looked at. You should still stay in your mandatory pose and try to make eye contact with the judges, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, is trying to get them to be looking at you, even if they should be looking at someone else, So how can you draw the judges into you? With stage presence, a couple things I saw yesterday that I just don't understand, you guys, and I'm not being mean, but I don't understand when people compete and they look miserable on stage. I don't know why, it just makes me feel really sad because you've obviously worked really hard to be there. So I don't know if it's nerves or maybe you don't want to be there, maybe you're just so dieted down, but oh man, walking on stage, not making eye contact and just having a frown like you literally hate the world and don't want to be there is the quickest way to get last place. And maybe you're okay with that, but it just, it's a show, it's fun, people are there to support you, to give you feedback, and to go on stage and just not even look like you want to be there. I don't understand it. I really don't. I mean, I know sometimes smiling a lot on stage gets tiring or your smile gets shaky, but there was a lot of people that just looked like they hated being there. And if you look like you hate being there, as much as I try to look at the physique and not even look at someone's face so much, if you look like you hate being there, I don't really want to look at you. That's the first thing that turns me away from looking at you, and I'm probably going to place you lower for that reason. Even if maybe your body, your physique for what you brought in looked better than someone else's, that's most judges I think are going to place you lower. So be aware of what vibes you're putting out on that stage. How you're looking and how you're presenting, not only in your physique but in your face. What are you giving off? Are you smiling? Are you looking like you're enjoying yourself? That's what it's all about. And yeah, it sounds silly, but something as small as having a smile could place you better. So be mindful of how you're looking when you're on stage. Another thing to think about too is your posing, obviously. That's kind of a no-brainer. Duh, you want to pose well when you're on stage. But I know it gets really nerve-wracking. You're being judged, you're on stage, the lights are hot, everyone's staring at you. A lot of people, especially in the bikini category, when we have you walk to the back of the curtain, a lot of girls move very fast. They weren't as mindful about anything shaking or jiggling, and that, at least for bikini, is one of the biggest things that might set you apart. A lot of the girls looked incredible from the front. So ultimately I had to judge and place based on how the backside looked. And a lot of people were very choppy with their transitions or not taking the time to really kind of smooth and polish out their posing. So I say that because don't underestimate the importance of posing during your prep. Again, there were times I placed people who maybe didn't have better physique than the next person, but their posing was so good that it just engaged me, that I just couldn't stop staring at them because they just had that it factor that drew me into staring at them. And sometimes that will place you higher. So when you're standing amongst a big group of people that all look great, you're posing by far. If you have that sass, that confidence, smooth transitions, making sure your walk is slow enough that things aren't jiggling too bad. So do not underestimate the power of posing at these competitions. It's really, really crucial. Another tip I have for you guys that I did see a couple times yesterday, I just want to remind people to be mindful of your sportsmanship. You will never know how you're going to place. You may think you know how you place, and it's okay to be disappointed with how you place in a competition, but really letting it show on stage, it just looks so bad, and it kind of takes away from the person that did beat you, and I don't know that that's really, great either. I saw a couple times where people got handed their awards and they were legit pissed, and even saw someone be like, wow, and just kind of made that face on stage and stood there in disbelief. And I get it. I've been there, back in 2012, actually at an OCB show when I was pissed, and I let it show on my face. And, I look back and it's like, why did I do that? Well, because I had everyone telling me they thought I was going to place in a certain place, and then when I didn't get that placing, I was like, this is bullshit. I didn't say that on stage, but from a judge's perspective, that just looks terrible. You know, I'm sorry you didn't place as high as you wanted to place. Get judges' feedback. Find out why. Find out why those other people placed higher than you did and use it to grow. Maybe you totally disagree with the judges' feedback, and that's fine. But try to kind of keep your composure on stage. Take your award and be a good sport about it. You know, stand there and take it and vent about it after, behind closed doors. Bodybuilding is really a small industry, in my opinion. People know people, word travels quick. So to give off that vibe, if you plan on competing again, it doesn't look good. And I really think, you know, maybe people don't think about it and it just happens. I know for me, it happened when I looked pissed off on stage, and it's something I would never do again because it just looks really bad. So, like I said, it also takes away from other people and their placings. Get your feedback, move on from there. Another thing that I saw, that this is just my personal preference, and I would never dock someone for having a bad tan. Like, for instance, if you peed and there was a dribble mark and you didn't get it fixed before the show, I would never count someone, take points off for that. However, what I have seen is, you know, when you have a competition and there is a show spray tan person available, I always recommend, hands down, do that show tan, unless you tan yourself on your own and you know how good it can look and what color it brings. I'm just personally not a big fan of Dream Tan, and I see a lot of bodybuilders still currently use that. And Dream Tan, I think it's good to have on backup, like if you need to touch yourself up a little bit, but to throw it on your entire body, it gives this goldish appearance that starts to turn green, especially when you sweat. So I saw some people that had that Dream Tan, and for some reason, it almost takes away from being able to see how amazing your physique is. So, you know, I think I saw some people maybe unsure why they placed the way they did. It could be because of your tan. So you want to save money. These shows are expensive, but this isn't an area I would ever recommend you save money. I've had people say too, well, don't you want to stand out on stage? There's your way to stand out. You just told me to stand out. That is not the way to stand out. That, honestly, from most judges that I've spoke with, it can hurt you on stage if you can't see your definition, your striations, depending on what category you're in. Those are things that you need to enhance your physique, not take away from it. Along the lines of having a good tan to help improve the way your physique looks and show it off, the other thing too, more so for the females, is your makeup can make a difference as well. And I've had some bad makeup jobs for the stage before, but I noticed that yesterday too, when some of the girls were difficult to judge, if they had like good makeup where it was like they had the contour, they had the eyeshadow, it popped, I was drawn to them a little bit more. So again, makeup makes a difference. So if you're not able to pay someone to do it, if you're good with makeup yourself, trial it ahead of time. Make sure, you know, under some heavy lights that you're gonna still pop, because that's what happens. A lot of people just do their normal basic makeup routine, and on stage your face just gets kind of washed out. So for the ladies out there, make sure you really kind of think about your makeup choices. That was some of the feedback I had for some of the women competitors, was some of the makeup choices, hairstyles I felt like made a difference with some people. I find it a bit distracting sometimes when people do the hair up with too many accessories in it, you know, the bling and some of the, you know, other things people add to it. I feel like I start looking at your hair more than I do your body. So just make sure whatever you're doing with your hair, it doesn't take away from your physique. You want to enhance it. Yeah, you want to feel beautiful, you want to feel confident and sexy, but just make sure whatever you're doing, it's not too wild that it's going to take away from your body and how you look on stage. The other thing that's really important, I saw this in a couple different categories, make sure the category that you're competing in, you know what the mandatory poses are. That right there was a couple in bikini that were doing figure poses, and it was hard for me to judge them as a bikini competitor because I kept looking at them like they should be in figure. So I get, you know, with posing, especially in bikini, it's not super standardized. You know, you want to do a front pose, you want to do a back pose. There are some rules depending on the organization, but make sure you know the organization and and what those poses should be. To see a bikini competitor kind of standing in a quarter turn as their front pose, it's hard for me to judge you because I can't see half your body and I'm just looking at you like you look like you're in figure. I saw some guys in physique that they had great physiques, but their pose, they didn't really know how to do the front pose, the back pose. They weren't able to open up their back. Again, this goes back to not underestimating posing. And remember with that you just might not be showing off your full physique. If you are someone in figure or physique and you need to be able to show off your back width in your lats, that's make or break you right there if you're going to be amongst a lot of...
You could place lower than you really should, unfortunately.
Guess the last thing I want to leave you guys with is to make sure you take the time to get judges' feedback if that's an option, and hopefully it is at any show you compete at. If you can talk to the judges afterwards. I talked to some people yesterday. I went right through my notes with them. It helps to see someone right there and then. But if not, and you get their email, send them an email. Send them your picture if you have a picture of the full class even. And ask for feedback. Like I said, maybe you don't agree with it. You guys know I don't always agree with the feedback I've been given over the years, but at least hear it out and kind of get a feel for what those judges were looking for. You're going to sit across, and I'm thinking about bikini specifically, depending on the organization and depending on the judging panel. The judging panel may not prefer a softer look for bikini versus a harder look for bikini and may place you accordingly. So NGA, for instance, when I competed in that organization, I'm pretty sure they just go for a harder, more muscular bikini look, whereas somewhere like OCB or AMBF, they're not looking for super hard muscular vascularity, and that's pretty consistent with the guidelines if you look them up for those organizations. So just be aware of those guidelines and take the time to get judges' feedback, and don't let it bog you down if you don't place how you want it to place. That's probably the best thing I've learned through the judging process. I was thrilled with my placings at my pro show this year, and even though I was hungry and still am to get a first place win, I just have a better understanding of how difficult it is to judge, and I don't think you'll ever really know until you sit on the other side of things. So if any of you guys are competitors or have judged shows before, I'd love to know your thoughts below. But it has just given me such a better appreciation that I don't think I would ever stand on stage ever and be pissed off about it, because you really just... It's really, really hard, you guys. It's so tough to judge these shows. And I know people are so quick to claim it's political and there was this going on and that going on. And, there are politics. It can happen probably. But just be cautious with how you react afterwards, Keep it to yourself. Don't post about it on social media all pissed off and salty about it. Just kind of let things simmer for a bit and think about what your goals are, how you want to look, and that's all you can control. And always remember too, just feel like a badass that you did get out on stage, because a lot of people don't have the balls to stand on a stage half naked and be judged. It's a really hard thing to do, and be proud of yourself regardless of your placing. But I hope you guys found this video helpful, gave you a little insight on my judge's perspective. I hope to continue to judge some shows locally. I very much so enjoy it. And shout out to any of my competitor clients, because you guys all rock, and it's not an easy thing to do to compete. So give yourself some credit, and I will see you guys in the next one.